Hello everybody, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of ghost spawns, and welcome back to the Disney Debate, where Kat Macberrie, Doug Macberrie, and myself discuss Disney movies and everything in between. Before we get to the subject today, how's it going, Kat?
Oh, hey, my voice is back. I am doing good. I'm a little peeved that we have to record this again, but that is clearly my fault because I did not check my settings and I could have risked causing you all to go deaf by listening to me. So apologies everyone for that, but regardless, I am happy to at least be talking about a film that we consider good. Because if this was a film that we considered bad, that would have been a problem.
Yeah, fun fact, for those who don't know, outside of the Disney Debate, Facebook and other groups, this is our second time recording this. When we initially recorded it, Kat's other mic, her internal computer mic, decided to be used instead. And the thing is, Discord automatically picks the correct mic, but Audacity doesn't. And so for this and The Legend of Lobo, which we recorded twice, and they were both unusable, unfortunately. So we're going to go back and redo that. That never happened. We're going to wipe the slate clean, and we're going to talk about this, and thankfully this movie is actually good. How's it going, Doug?
Mighty fine!
Oh, that cat. She has the voice of an angel. She's gonna make me a billionaire.
Oh, divine.
Oh no, she's turned into Doug. My money. My money. No. So welcome everyone to a very special episode of the Disney Debate. Today we're talking about a film from 1962 known as Almost Angels. This film is about the Vienna Boys Choir, and this is one that is largely forgotten. However, we are very happy to report, even though we've had to watch this film twice, one, it is available on Disney Plus, so we didn't pay much money to see it. Two, this is the first hidden gem that we've talked about on the show. And what we mean by that is, in the lead up to all the Disney debates, we knew a lot about certain eras. We knew about the Golden Age, we knew about a little bit about the Bronze Age, and we had a lot to talk about for each of these ages. But as we got into the end of the Westerns and the beginning of this transitional period where there's a lot of really weird films, we didn't know what we were in for. And a lot of these films, when we're watching them, we were not pleasantly surprised. It's either films that we knew were good or films that ended up being okay, but you can see why they were lost to time. This is the first genuinely hidden gem that we've seen throughout the entire lead up into this. And that's one of the most interesting factors because this is largely forgotten for another reason. Before we dive into that, what do you think about this hidden gem, Kat?
It was definitely a surprise to me because I had never heard of it before we got around to finally watching it. And the title alone doesn't really tell you much, nor does the cover, which we'll get to later on. So I didn't really know what to expect. I just knew that it involved singing. And I love singing. I was in theater. I was in choir. So I'm thinking, you know what? This might be decent, so long as they have decent singers for this. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, especially since they show the whole process of how to become a Vienna choir boy and what it is that they do and why they're so world-renowned for their abilities. It was very interesting. And yeah, it kind of is cliche in its storyline of, the kid seeking his dream against his parents' wishes, but at the same time, it's enough to, keep you invested. And the kids are, interesting enough that they keep you invested. You want to see them succeed. So yeah, this was definitely a surprise in how good it turned out to be.
And Mr. Doug, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. There are definitely things about this movie that I do, question. I do have notes. There's some head scratching as to, why certain things happen and then don't get shown, or, that. But on the whole, I think the movie is actually fairly enjoyable.
I think this film definitely has a hidden gem status. Now, why it's a hidden gem? Well, let's kind of go into a little bit of backstory. I'm going to talk about like the decades and how things kind of changed over time. So first of all, I'm not sure if we talked about this in the Legend of Lobo original recording or not, but I want to talk about it here. The decades leading up to this point had very clear delineation points. You have the golden age of animation from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs up until the war started in the 1940s, 1942-ish. Bambi is kind of on the edge. So from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to Bambi, you have this golden age of animation. But then the war started. So Disney started doing the war era, where you had a lot of propaganda stuff, but you also had a lot of tour films. So you had Victory Through Air Power, where we have to use airplanes. You had Saludos Amigos and stuff like that. It was a lot of package films. And you have this clear delineation of eras where something big happened and the genre of films changed. Now, after the package era ended, we had kind of like the Bronze era, because Cinderella came out in 1950, and they started doing a lot more animation, but it was more sparingly, because after the war, they still didn't have the most money, so they started doing live action. And a lot of the Bronze era was westerns, frontier films. You had Treasure Island, Robin Hood, you had Rob Roy the Highland Rogue, Davy Crockett. This era was really big, and while the end of the 50s wasn't the best, I didn't really like Westward Ho, I didn't really like Johnny Tremaine or stuff like that, there was a clear delineation between, okay, we have a bit here, but we want to focus on live action films to recoup some of the costs, and that's where we get a lot of these live action films. Fast forward to the 1960s. And the 60s is an era where we have a very different, scattered portion of films. And it's where you have a lot of things thrown against the wall. Disney had stepped back at this point, and he was starting to focus more on his theme park idea, more on Disney World and Disneyland and all this other stuff, to where he wasn't really fully overseeing the productions, and his health was starting to fail. So this was around the time, in 1962, this was in that middle age where you start throwing stuff against the wall. Some of it is a clear delineation from what happened before, 10 Who Dared, stuff like that, but there's a lot of experimental things. And Almost Angels is part of that. I feel like when they didn't do very well with Babes in Toyland, Almost Angels was kind of the next idea that Disney wanted to do. And I feel like he's always wanted to do these big musicals, and this was a big idea. Like, Fantasia was huge. It didn't pull in the money, but this was the next idea from his mind. And yeah, he wasn't controlling a lot of the production at this point, but I see a lot of Disney in this concept. Would you agree with that, Kat?
I mean, I wouldn't classify it as a musical per se, because it is about a choir group, and pretty much most of the songs they sing are classic Germanic Austrian pieces that are world-renowned. I don't think there's anything original in it, at least not as far as I've seen. So I wouldn't really put it in the musical sense, because again, they're not really using the music to tell a story. It's more just the showpieces for certain scenes, and just, again, to highlight the choir itself in their performance. But I guess you could at least call them markers for each scene of the movie, because at least you can associate certain scenes, with certain points of the film, like the whole postman scene, or the whole lullaby scene, or the opera at the end. So at least they're sort of integral to the plot in that sense, but I don't know if I'd classify it the same way as Disney musicals. I mean, maybe plot-wise, because again, you have the cliches of, the kids and getting into trouble, and, the kid going against his parents' wishes, but I don't know if the music really helps with any of that.
Yeah, like, I feel like what they were trying to do with this film is that they were trying to take, okay, we made musicals in the past, we're gonna try to take these music and put in a setting and a story, but it doesn't fully function in that regard, and it has all the trappings of what Walt loved, but none of the cohesion. And the real tragedy of this is that this came out just before The Sound of Music, and that's probably one of the major reasons why this was overshadowed, because after watching this again on Disney Plus, The Sound of Music was recommended to me, and this was 2 years before The Sound of Music, and The Sound of Music had such a huge cultural impact. If this had a little bit more polish in terms of the songs moving the plot, and if it had come out maybe a couple of years later, this would be, I think, a little bit more well-known. But alas, we're here, and very overshadowed. It just, like, it's trying to use songs to combine a family story with scenery and music. And I get that Sound of Music appeal, that feeling, but it doesn't seem to be in the cards. And also, the second problem is that this film was made on beta.
Oh no, beta!
Yeah. This was a film that was created not for VHS, not for DVD, but beta. So the quality of this film is not great. Before I take it over to Doug for his thoughts, Kat, do you want to weigh in on this? Because you actually went out for the second time and got the DVD of this. So we can talk a little bit about the streaming quality and a little bit about the DVD quality here.
Yeah, so here's the funny thing. I'm actually kind of glad in this instance that we're re-recording, because since the first one, I went to a convention and they were selling a bunch of DVDs, including some older Disney movies, and lo and behold, what I happened to find was Almost Angels on DVD. So lucky me. But it's okay. I don't mind owning this on DVD. Like, I don't own every single Disney movie on DVD because I'm very selective with my libraries. Like, I don't want to own something that I know is shit. So, I'm very selective. In this case, I didn't mind because I was genuinely curious to see how it looked on DVD versus how it looked on Disney Plus. And believe it or not, there actually is a stark difference. And I actually read into it a little more, and I might have misspoken a bit about the beta format. Because here's the thing. The movie, as we mentioned, was made in 1962. So the ratio for that would be 1.75 by 1. That was how pretty much most of the movies were filmed. They're like big, wide screen meant for the movies. It wasn't formatted for VHS and beta until about 1985. And by then it was squished down to a 1.33 by 1 ratio, which, makes sense for that type of video format. The problem is, again, you're making something that's both for VHS and beta, and they're both different qualities. So because of that, when they got transferred to DVD later on in 2010, it kind of distorted the quality a bit. As in, it made the issues stand out much more, not to mention there was stuff such as, like, video distortion, audio distortion, there was, like, very obvious scratch marks, obvious markers, because keep in mind, back in the day, that you had to change films, like, rapidly while in the theater, so you could see, like, the singe marks on the corners signifying the video people that they have to change the reels real quick, that it was coming up. So, yeah, when you look at this on DVD, the flaws become glaringly obvious. And I don't want to pick on this for its poor quality. I really don't, because let's be honest, we watched other Disney stuff that looked way worse than this, that were older and in lesser quality. The reason I point out this one in particular is because it was clear they had a vision for the look of this film. They were really interested in showing the beauty of the Austrian landscape, the beauty of Austrian architecture and everything. So this was a movie that was meant to be like a visual sight to behold. The problem is, it was just transferred repeatedly onto different formats to the point where it no longer had the same sort of gleam that they originally shot for. So that's why I bring it up now, because, yeah, when you convert something from movie theater style to VHS to beta to DVD, stuff's not going to look right down the line. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because, again, when we watched the Disney Plus version, it was very obvious they were using, like, the old version. It was very grainy, very distorted. It seemed a little bit longer, so as compared to when I watched the DVD, where the quality was a lot crisper. The colors pop more. The problem is the stuff like the scratches, the scorch marks, the dust was a lot more prominent. And it seemed to go a little bit faster, I think. Or maybe that was just because we were rewatching it. But yeah, the quality definitely is something to be noted. Because again, this is supposed to be both an audio and visual site. And it's kind of hard to appreciate all of it because of the quality.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like, this is a film where when we first saw it on Disney Plus, we're like, okay, this had to be a very different quality because the masters from, like, some of the original stuff are a lot worse. Now, granted, it's not like Cinderella where they kind of destroyed it for the Blu-ray, and it's not that same type of thing. It's more like, okay, it's getting worse and worse as the film degrades. So it's one of those unfortunate things. I don't think it fully impacts it. Doug, you want to weigh in on those 2 points?
Yeah, so going to an earlier point you were making about this being a musical, it's definitely more of a musical than some of the other films Disney put out that claim to be musicals and only have maybe like 1, maybe 2 songs. So... And obviously, yeah, it's just, public domain choir music, choir singing, so it's not original, but, at least it has that going for it. In terms of the quality, between the, what we watched on Disney Plus versus what we saw on the DVD, yeah, definitely the DVD somehow was a little better. Despite the fact that, Disney Plus is supposed to be the better thing. But, yeah, I remember noticing it definitely had a slightly better quality to it on DVD with the picture, and maybe some of the music, versus whatever, I guess they ripped it straight from the deteriorating, beta. So it was much more grainy on Disney Plus. So yeah, that's about what I noticed.
Yeah, it's a shame because, like, Disney Plus is supposed to have, like, the better versions of stuff, and granted, I would like to own this on DVD, but it's one of those things where clearly it's hard to find a good master. They didn't really see this as extremely necessary, I guess, but looking at it on Disney Plus, it's blurrier, it's not as crisp, and there are some points where, like, the audio is a little bit out of it, and sometimes the audio doesn't sync up with the mouth movements. It's not always noticeable, but it's just something that I noticed watching this again. So that's that. And also another reason why this is probably forgotten is the marketing. So let's talk a little bit about marketing here. And this is something that I wanted to bring up because I think that Almost Angels has the worst marketing out of any of the films we've seen so far. And I'm going to take this poster and I'm going to copy this image, put it in the Discord, just so we can all look at this and take a look at how bad this is. Because when you think about Disney films, you think about, okay, something magical, fantastical. Heck, even Toby Tyler had a monkey with a gun on the poster. Like, someone shows a monkey with a gun, I'm going to watch. I'm going to figure out what's going on in this movie. Because Toby Tyler had problems, but it had a monkey with a gun.
So fun fact, that the same con I went to, I actually did find a DVD of Toby Tyler. And in hindsight, I probably should have got it just so I could say I have it. But the reason I didn't get it, there was no monkey with a gun on the cover. Like, they had Toby Tyler.
Oh my God.
They had the monkey. There was no gun. Like, what the hell? Like, that was one of the big things that, like, drew me to the movie was that poster. Why the hell did they exclude that? I mean, I know why they excluded it, but still.
Phil, if you could, I know we don't normally put it up, but if you can put up these posters side by side, I want to show people this, because, like, Toby Tyler at least had a good poster. It at least showed, hey, monkey with a gun. You know, you have something to draw your attention. Here, for Almost Angels, we have 3 boys, one who appears to have his mouth open. They look like the Three Stooges. One has a patch over his eye. That's not in the movie.
I think it's a black eye.
It looks like they're going to get it.
I think it's supposed to be a black eye, like he got into a fight or something.
But they don't get in a fight in the movie, and it's the 3 main characters, but, like, the tagline is, boys will be boys, even during the most important performance of their lives. They never fight like this in the performance. Like, what? This is not the movie that we saw.
No, it's not. And I don't even know who that middle boy is, because you have the one boy, Tony over there. You have the redhead, who's barely a character. Where's Peter at? Who is this strange third boy that they kind of just stuck in there?
Or is that supposed to be Peter?
That does not look like him.
Mm.
And then you have the teacher, very minuscule in the bottom is the teacher, who's one of the major parts of the film. Like, did they want to market to the Tom Sawyer crowd? Did they think that we weren't going to listen to a film about Vienna Choir boys? Like, this is one of the worst marketing things that I've seen looking through these films. And, you know, you can show me the Tonka movie poster. And at least Tonka, I can get a feel for what the movie is about. It's a Native American and a horse, so it's going to involve Native Americans. It's about historical stuff. I can get that from the poster, even though I don't like the movie. Kat, what do you get from this poster?
I see 3 boys. Again, they look like the Three Stooges, like when they were kids, and it's showing their early days, and showing a guy who looks like their dad just staring up at him, being like, "Did I spawn you 3?" So yeah, I like, you cannot tell by looking at this that this is supposed to be based on the Vienna Choir boys. And in fact, from what I heard, this wasn't even the original title. The original title was Born to Sing, which again makes more sense because it's about singing boys. But I guess they thought that, oh, they're not going to watch a movie about boys choir. We got to make it look like, oh, they're mischievous little lads, you know, that just happen to be in a choir. So, yeah, let's just show them being rambunctious and rapscallions and everything, even though none of that happens in the movie. It's like the most we see them misbehave is they have a pillow fight and Peter locks Tony in the room briefly, and then Tony goes out the window. Like, that's the most trouble they get into. But it's like, that was enough to warrant this change in the poster? Really?
It's so weird. And again, going back to the Toby Tyler poster, you have the circus subheader, you have the clown, you have the monkey with a gun, you have some of the other major people involved in the circus. You get an idea of what the film is about, and I don't get it here, Doug.
Well, I mean, if I may go off on that, clearly Disney, in its beginning of not having a lot of faith in its product, obviously, because they actually originally released Almost Angels as a double bill with the re-release of Lady and the Tramp. So
yeah,
apparently, like, even the numbers, they were very good, but it's hard to say whether, that came from Almost Angels or from, people seeing, Lady and the Tramp again. So yeah, clearly not a lot of faith in their product, and that is a trend that seems to continue today, but at least, with, most of the stuff today, their posters reflect, for the most part, what's going on in the film, versus this, which is like it has some of the characters, and maybe, I don't know, I want to give it the benefit of the doubt that maybe there was a flaw with the poster, and that, it wasn't originally supposed to look like the kid that I guess was Peter had a black eye. So who knows? But yeah, again, I'm just gonna say not a lot of faith from the Disney corporation on their product.
Yeah. On that note, I do want to mention something really quick, because if we don't say something, people are going to talk anyway. Recently, a lot of people have canceled their Disney Plus subscriptions, for good reason, because of the cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel, and the reinstation of Jimmy Kimmel. I don't want to speak too much on this because it's not really fully related to Disney. There was a lot of pressure put on them, but I don't like how Disney Plus has raised its prices. I don't like how Disney head has played it very safe recently. They got rid of Chapek, but now, is it Eisner or Iger who's in charge right now?
Iger.
Iger is playing it very safe, and that's causing a lot of problems behind the scenes. So, I personally haven't canceled my Disney Plus subscription, but that's just because we need to do this show. I am not endorsing their behavior. I do not like how they've handled this situation, especially because they immediately just took down one of the most popular entertainers and then brought him back. It was very weird.
Not to go too deep into depth with it, but on the subject of Michael Eisner, he did actually weigh in on that situation.
Oh, he did?
He did, yeah.
He actually called Bob Iger a coward for caving. Mm-hmm. So, he was actually on our side for once, and he wasn't, the most evil thing ever.
Yeah. I don't like to make this show about politics. I'm just... Mm-hmm. This is relevant to Disney, and it's one of those things where both of the latest people in charge have been making mistakes. They need to put someone new in charge. Now that they have Iger, they at least managed to bring things back, but they need some new blood in to get better at doing something like this, because marketing failure all across the board. It happened in the past, it happens now. It's not entirely Disney's fault, but Disney has lost a lot of goodwill in the past weekend, and that's part of the problem, is that all these people who go to Disney parks and watch Disney films and were, the biggest streaming service in the world are now going somewhere else. And, bringing it back to Almost Angels, the quality of Almost Angels could have been much better if they had done the DVD version. Kat, do you have anything to add to that before I move on?
I will say this, and I'm someone who's a big proponent of physical media. I understand streaming is very convenient and a lot easier in terms of watching random things and watching your favorite stuff and all that. But if possible, if you can afford it, please, please, please buy physical DVDs or Blu-rays or VHS or whatever of your favorite movies before they go away forever. Because I would not be surprised with the sinking of quality and, the overall access of streaming, that these movies and shows are going to be around for long, at least in a way that's accessible to the public. So I am telling you all right now, if you can, get a DVD of your favorite movie, get a box set of your favorite TV show, do whatever you can to keep that media with you so you are not paying through the nose to corporate fat cats in order to access the stuff that you love. Like I said, I got lucky in finding this at a convention of all places that was for toys. So if I'm able to luck out, you guys most certainly are going to have better luck than me. Those of you who are proficient at scouring eBay and Amazon and all that. So buy movies, buy physical media, and stick it to them where it hurts.
Yes, buy physical, and also look for the best quality, because in some cases the re-releases aren't always the best. Look them up. Again, Cinderella is my big example. I don't think the Blu-ray is as good as the original DVD. Doug, do you have anything to add?
Yep, absolutely. On the subject of physical media, also the fact that, if you have physical media, it's yours. They can't tell you you don't own it. They can't take it away from you on a whim. They can't delete it. Yes, it might break down over time, but, you have it to watch whenever you want for as long as it, stays.
Raise a glass
With
to
that being
media,
said,
something they can never take away, no matter what they tell you.
and that's saying something. Like, on the subject of Hamilton, like, Hamilton is only available online. I would like a physical version of some of these play stuff.
Hell yeah.
So it would be nice to have physical media again. Having convenience is fine. But the way it should work is when a film comes out, streaming, theaters, then home media, and then home media should be the final thing. In any case, I didn't want to delve too much into that. I just know that people would comment on it because all the recent stuff and Almost Angels is part of the victim of this, too. In a way, because it's like, it's not marketed, it is on there, but it's not the best quality. So, buy physical if you can. Moving on, let's actually talk about this film. There's unfortunately not that much to talk about. However, as I said, this is a hidden gem, and where it really works is in these characters. And while the story is very simple, I think it moves forward really well. It is mainly a story about a boy named Tony Fiala, played by Vincent Winter, who is a working class boy whose father is a train conductor. They say engine driver in this plot synopsis, but I don't know if that's actually the term. He's more like a train conductor. He operates the train, and he operates the train. His mom's like a working class mom, so he's not like very rich, but he has a great voice, and he decides to try out for the choir when he finds a boy named Peter who tells him how to do it. And so he and his new friend Friedel, who he meets during the auditions, end up being in the Vienna Boys Choir. This was filmed on location at the Vienna Boys Choir in the Augarten Palais, surroundings of Vienna and all this Austrian landscape. So this was actually filmed on location. And unlike Bon Voyage, I think it works, despite the quality, which, if you have the DVD, it's a little bit better quality in that regard. But it's one of those films where it's definitely trying to be a scenic musical about a boy trying to find his place in the world. And it has these two main characters. Tony, who wants to be a singer, and Peter, who feels threatened by it because his voice is starting to break. And because of that, he sees, okay, well, if my voice is starting to break, my worth here is going to be less. However, Peter has a lot of conducting prowess and a lot of prowess in other areas, whereas Tony is not very smart in mathematics because he's working class, and there's little bits and pieces here about the story about, oh, well, his father doesn't want him to go, but he ends up letting him go. There's a few kind of false cliffhangers there. What I think works, though, is these characters really sell the tension of, as a boy, this would be a problem. Yeah, my voice may break, and that's going to be a major thing, because even if you have something else that you could do, it takes a lot of time to retrain your voice to be good at something else. And Tony doesn't have any other skills. Whereas Peter is just like, oh my god, well, I want to be with my friends. I don't want to grow up. And this central conflict, I think, works for the film. Are there problems that we'll get into? Yes. Kat, what do you think?
Like I said, it's kind of a generic plot where you have a character that wants to do something, and their parents say, "No, you're just following a dreamer's idea. You need to live in the real world and get in a real job and yada 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 and take after me." And the kid's like, "But that's my dream. It's not your dream. That's why you don't like it." We've seen this a million times. I mean, heck, that's what the whole High School Musical thing is based on. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, I mean, again, the real the real like showcase of all this is the Boys Vienna Choir, showing, where it is that they learn, where they sing, the type of environment they're in, where the places they travel. Like, that's really like the highlight of the film. And like I said, if this was made today, you would have seen the wonders of Vienna in Austria, which, are very beautiful. And hearing them sing, it's like, again, hearing a heavenly choir. It's really interesting. And for those who's never taken, never been in a choir or taken music classes or anything, you learn the fundamentals of, how it is they learn to sing, how different voice levels, train themselves to sing certain notes. It's like I said, it's very fascinating, and it appeals more, of course, to people who are actually, singers. Like, I was in choir myself, so, all these notes and all, like, these directions and stuff I recognize from having done that. It's very, like, it's very interesting, especially if you're in the craft itself. And as for the story of the boys, again, while Tony's is kind of generic, Peter's is not so much. I mean, it kind of is, it's a boy that has to face the fact that he's growing up and might lose the talent he once had, but, it's an engaging story at the very least, because even when it's coming, it still takes you off guard when it happens, and it makes you feel for him. So, yeah, that's where the interest really lies in terms of their stories.
Yeah, it's a simple thing, but, like, again, you were in the choir, I was in the chorus in high school. Not high school, grade school, I should say. I was in the chorus in grade school, and I liked it a lot. And, like, this goes into depth, not just into how they should sing, but where the singing comes from. How, like, it's not just about one skill. Like, they say, okay, this is Franz Schubert, who wrote this when he was here. He wasn't good at math, but he just kept pouring out music. Yes, you might not be good now, but you can improve. You'll get better. If you have the drive to do it, you can improve and do better. And I think what the core thing that I like about this film, and why, like, it really works, more than just the singing from the choir boys, which is heavenly, but I really love how it's showing that not one talent is important. Having multiple talents, trying new things, because he starts off being really bad at what is it, the oboe, or it's a wind instrument.
Well, he plays the oboe, but he wasn't really bad at it. It was something he always played with his mother. He's just not on a professional level, but it's still something that
and then he gets better.
Yeah, it's math really that he struggled with, which is understandable. Like, math was my worst subject for certain, and it kind of highlights our still relevant point today that even though you go for a certain like a certain area of study or whatever, you're always going to be held back by the generic stuff like math or history or reading or something like that. Like, that's still relevant today.
Mm-hmm. And it's like this film goes out of its way to say, look, you might be bad in one area, but if you can prove you have the drive to continue and the will to continue, and if you prove that you're good at it, that can push you forward. And to a certain extent, I can understand the dad, because looking at it a second time, the dad says, I don't want him to end up like your brother, who's just playing side gigs, like, once every so often. And I'm just like, oh, okay. But he sees the talent in his son, and he's like, oh, okay. So he wanted the grades just so that he could have something afterwards, but now he sees the talent. So it's like these little things that really gravitate to me and make me energized about this film, that I think it's worthwhile. Doug?
Yeah, I agree. Definitely the message is right. That, follow your dreams and work hard to make them happen. I just wish, though, that with the pacing of the movie, they, would have ironed that out, because it does feel a little contradictory at times. Particularly like with Tony's dad. It seems like, they make such a fuss over him. He refuses to have Tony join the choir. He wants him to, be, an engineer or whatever. And it seems like he's just going to completely, they went and did the auditions behind his back. But now Tony's been accepted into the choir, but he's not going to let Tony join it. And then it seems like there's a plan that his mother has to, convince him otherwise, but we never see that. Just in the next frame, they're already going there. So that was an issue. And then there's also the fact that, like, the film has such a thing about, focusing on Tony that it kind of forgets, that it's also focusing on Peter. And then all of a sudden, like, when Tony's arc is basically complete, then the movie continues and it's all about Peter. And it doesn't feel like a smooth transition, even though it kind of is. So yeah, again, it's a good movie. It just, I think they could have had a second pass. I think they could have, ironed out the pacing a little bit better.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the biggest problem with this movie is the pacing. The first 2/3 rush through several points in his life, and there's not a moment wasted in those 2/3, but it could have extended a little bit to give us more with Friedel, who really doesn't get that much. It could have done a little bit more setting up Peter, and I agree with that. But then it has two climaxes, one where there's a dress rehearsal for a play that goes on for 10 minutes, and it could have been cut down because that's when his voice breaks, and they're trying to trick people into thinking that someone else is singing, but it doesn't work. And I feel like if that wasn't the climax, they could have cut that down, but the climax really is Peter conducting in the orchestra, and it just feels like they went too long with Peter in the end, whereas they could have weaved that better. It's just that pacing is a little bit off, and I definitely agree with you there. Kat?
Yeah, definitely. It was more noticeable the second time we watched it, because I felt like the pacing was a bit slow throughout, although the scene changes were sometimes abrupt, like toward the beginning when the father says, you're not going to change my mind on this, and that's final, and then the next scene he's immediately bringing his son to school. It's like, was that scene cut? Did they say something to change his mind, or is this one of those comedic points where somebody says, I'm not doing this and that's final, and they end up doing the thing anyway? Like, it was really abrupt, but yeah, as the movie went on, again, definitely the last third for certain, like, that went on way too long. Like, we didn't need to see the whole play, we didn't need to see the whole concert. Like, they definitely could have chopped that down. And again, I get that they're trying to promote the group and the singers. It's like, if you're gonna have the Vienna Boys Choirs, you may as well have them sing the whole thing, but it's like, we're still watching a movie here, not a concert. You can chop out some bits and still leave a majority of the song. So, yeah, I felt like, it felt almost like they thought the movie ended too soon after the main conflict was done with Tony and his parents, and they're like, well, we gotta extend this somehow, so they thought of this, but then didn't think of anything else, and they thought it was too short, so like, let's just show the whole thing just to fill time. So, yeah, I feel like if this was aired today, they would have chopped those scenes up a whole lot more.
Yeah, they could have cut a lot in the play. They could have cut quite a bit out of the... there's a scene where Peter conducts the boys in one of the most impromptu sessions of a song that they just learned that he wrote, and he conducts them perfectly, and then more people spontaneously come in, and he conducts them perfectly. It's really out of left field. It's an interesting sequence, but it goes on too long. And it's a nice song, but it's about a chicken clucking. And that kind of slows down a little bit of the middle of the film, too. And then you have, like, the second climax, and it's like, I like this film a lot. Watching this, I did not look at my phone. I had a lot of fun just, like, looking back and listening to the music. The music is a highlight. But when you take a look at the pacing, there are parts that could definitely be trimmed down, and I think that's where the biggest problem lies. There are some things that haven't aged well, and I don't know if we talked about this in the first recording of this, but you know Kendrick Lamar, when he comes out, it's like, hey Drake, I hear you like him young. It's like, there's a line in the film where they said, how old is your boy? It's 12. Mine's 10. They like him young. And I'm like, no. This is a boys choir.
Yeah.
No, stop. Bad touch.
They not like us. They not like us. They not like us. But
oh God!
Now we have to have the Vienna Boys Choir sing "Not Like Us."
Oh, geez.
Yes.
Oh God.
Yes.
They don't like us. They not like us.
Oh God. That admittedly would be pretty entertaining to watch. But just to be briefly serious for a moment, yeah, that line did not age well, and if they did air it today, I could see them cutting that line, because, yeah, that makes things rather uncomfortable, and I say this just because having done research on the group, there were allegations of, people taking advantage of the young boys to the point where they now actually have a private hotline, to report people anonymously when it happens. So, yeah, knowing that and then hearing them say this line, I'm like, who passed this through script writing and thought it was a good idea? They are young boys between 10 and 14. You do not say stuff like that about young boys.
It's also kind of interesting too, because there's a lot of serious stuff that this film goes into about, the voice breaking, and they show there's other avenues you can conduct. They show that people in the back have bass or baritone. They show older boys there. So it's not just about the angelic voices, but they also delve into weird stuff too. And it's look, I like this movie a lot, but it's also kind of a romance. And I'm joking here, but there are parts where there's no hetero explanation for certain things, because it feels like Tony and Peter have a crush on each other, Tony first, and then Peter reciprocates. And there's a part when they get into play, and Friedel gets to play the love interest, a girl, and it's Friedel's who gets to play my boyfriend? And he says Tony, and they are cheering, they're giddy, they're extremely giddy, and I'm there's no
sign me the fuck up.
Sign me the fuck up. There is no heterosexual explanation for that, and I'm not trying to make light of this, because stuff like that, taking advantage of boys did happen, especially in the church and the choir. So I'm not trying to make light of that. I'm just showing this is what is in the film and was presented to us. And I think you showed me a review of this film where it's this is the best bromance of all time. Kat.
Yeah, I was watching other people's reaction to Almost Angels, and most of them had the same opinion that I did, except for one person. I'm trying to look up her name. She does these 5-minute reviews of every single Disney film ever, and I just remember when I watched her review of this, she said they are the cutest boyfriends ever. It is so apparent what crushes they have on each other. And after she said that, I'm huh, that actually explains a lot. Because,
it would explain why, there are certain points where Tony keeps covering for Peter for no reason.
Yeah, that always bothered me, because it's Peter obviously is threatened by Tony, because, Peter was the golden boy, the leader of the choir and everything. So, he's used to getting all the solos, all the lead parts and stuff. But now that he's getting older and his voice is starting to lower, he can't do all that stuff anymore. So now his teacher has picked Tony as the new golden boy and is expecting Peter to mentor him. Of course, Peter isn't having this, and he tries several times throughout the film to sabotage Tony. And despite all this clear animosity Peter has toward Tony just stares at him all bright-eyed, smiling and stuff, and he even covers for him. When the part where we get to the hospital where they're singing the Postman song, and Tony's supposed to come in with this big solo, Peter wants to sabotage his opportunity for his first solo by locking him in a room and thus making him Mrs. Q, which is already a huge dick thing to begin with. But of course, Tony, in all his wisdom, decides to climb out the window and go around to the other side, thus making his big entrance through the side window and surprising all the kids. I mean, thank God it worked out and he didn't, plummet to his death, a la Pollyanna. But, yeah, even after all that, despite the fact it went off swimmingly, he still got in trouble with the teacher. And even though he had an opportunity to say, well, I had no choice, I got, Peter locked me in my room, he says, oh, it was my idea. I just wanted to make a grand entrance. And thankfully the teacher's smart, and he knew that Peter had tried to screw Tony over. But he revealed that Tony didn't say anything. So, Tony's already a G for not being a snitch. But now he's, making his man crush more apparent than ever. It's like, oh, I don't care if you treat me horribly. I will cover you at every turn. It's, both romantic, but also kind of sad. But, hey, it worked.
What's even worse is that this is at a hospital for sick kids. I believe it's in the 1950s. So we reasoned that this probably was, polio victims. Peter just said, fuck them sick kids. Really?
Yeah, that's so messed up. I get it. You're threatened by this new person. You want to make them look bad. Why would you do that at the expense of sick kids? Come on. This is going to be the one of the last times for a lot of them that they have a gleam of hope and happiness in their lives. Just let them have it. Sabotage them at any other point. In front of adults or whatever. But yeah, they were very lucky it worked out as it did. By the way, her name is Jess Watches Every Disney Movie Ever. Yes, that's literally the name of her channel. Shout out to her. But I love her take on that. Again, it recontextualizes a lot of, what Tony does in the film. Because, you can tell from the beginning when he meets Peter, he's all starry-eyed and everything. He's definitely enamored. I know it's probably wasn't intentional, but he seems very queer-coded. So, yeah, I know if it was made today, they might have went down that route, and I wouldn't have been surprised if, they did end up together by the end, but, as is, it's a nice story about, boys just being friends, and, basically enemies to friendship type thing, or if you wanted to really go there, enemies to lovers, but I know that Disney probably wouldn't have the balls to do that.
Yeah. Again, shoutouts to Jess Watches Every Disney Movie Ever. I've actually seen a couple of the reviews while looking for stuff in Disney Debate. Very good stuff, so check it out. We wanted to shout that out because it's something I see and I want to give kudos there. But also, it is an interesting read, and I think, while this wouldn't fly back in the 1962 when this was made, this could fly today, and I think it's a better reading of the story of unrequited love, and on Tony's end, it adds more character. Doug, would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I honestly, I didn't think of it that way, but it makes a lot more sense as to why he'd be a lot more protective. Obviously, Tony, Peter would be very threatened by Tony, and it, not being helped by Heller, who's just kind of forcing Tony to be the new golden boy. But yeah, it is very... it's now that you mention it, it's why would he go to the length that he would to protect him in all these instances? Obviously, he ain't no snitch. But then, yeah, he goes above and beyond that, and he's even out to, protect him when his voice is changing, and yeah, that was a little much. So yeah, now that you mention it, I could see it as being a queer-coded thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Now, with that being said, I went a little bit longer on this than talking about the characters because most of the characters in this were actual members of the Vienna Boys Choir who perform most of the songs. So we're not going to talk too much about the characters. I want to bring it over to the songs a little bit, and then we'll talk about the main 4 cast members, a little bit about them, kind of go from there, because most of the people are actual choir boys. Most of the music here is traditional Germanic and Austrian songs. However, they do have a lot of classics in here. I really love that they use Green Sleeves, Good Evening, Good Night. There are a lot of traditional ones mixed in. I'm not sure if there's any original pieces, which, again, Kat put out, which is why this isn't fully a musical. It's more like a musical... It's like a music compilation, almost. It's not like Across the Universe, but, it has all these songs that you recognize to kind of further the plot, but they don't further the plot. Kat, what do you think of the music overall?
Oh, the music is very well sung for certain. I mean, you could tell why the Vienna Boys Choir is so world renowned because of the quality of how they sing. Like, these are very high notes, especially for young boys to sing. But they do it pitch perfect. And again, they sound like a heavenly choir. It's really nice to hear. And granted, I'm not the most knowledgeable on classic songs, but like I do recognize a couple. Like, you had Mozart in there, you have Brahms, Schubert, Lowenstein. Yeah, they definitely have some classical pieces in there, and it's impressive that they sing it all in German too, because like German is not an easy language to learn. I mean, probably if you're Austrian and you learn it, yeah, because they're more similar. But English to German, no, that's really difficult. But these boys pull it off flawlessly. I will say, though, again, this is in reference to both the quality of the film and all that, but it, like, for the most part, at least for, like, half the film, I couldn't tell that the boys were being dubbed. So it did actually look like they were singing, but toward the end, when the quality starts to distort, that it becomes really obvious they're being dubbed, especially the scenes where they have no reason to be singing as pitch perfect as they do, like the chicken song. But
yeah.
I'm like, you boys just picked this up. How do you know exactly what tune it is, and how are you all so perfectly in sync with it? But it doesn't matter, because it makes for a funny moment. And even when the teacher joins in, and he doesn't even have the music, and somehow he knows the words. So, but it's still fun, though. And it's really nice. And again, classical music lovers will appreciate it for certain. Because, like, this is probably, for most people, their only chance to ever watch the Vienna Boys Choir sing. Because given how highbrow they are, they probably charge to the nose for their concerts, and they're done all over the world and like major cities and stuff. Like, I'd be shocked if like they came by here recently, because like I can only imagine how much the tickets would go for that. But yeah, like, this is the best way, honestly, to hear them, or at least like the classic version of them. I don't know if they still do like classic pieces, if they do modern pieces as well, but I imagine they might do some stuff just to shake it up a bit. But yeah, I can see why this is like top tier in terms of choirs around the world.
Yeah, like, I love the music. I like that they aren't just doing the classics. They have Mozart, they have, Strauss, and like all these different types of music, and it doesn't have a similar style, because you have the Postman, and the Postman is vastly different. It's not as classic. You have the Toy Symphony. I think this is a great showcase of the Vienna Boys Choir, and just listening to it was enjoyable. Doug?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of brought this up in our last, when we recorded this previously, but it's like, I was in a choir back in high school. My parents are big into choir singing, and my mom loves classical music. So it's like, while I'm not, that well versed in it, I know, I recognize the names of a lot of the composers, and I recognize the pieces. So, that was good for me. And then in terms of like showing them how they, work as the choir, it's great. But I do have a critique, because I know they go off and do something that I think my choir teacher would scold us if we were to ever do that. And that's, they're rehearsing while sitting down. I don't understand that, because you'd think you'd want the diaphragm to be, completely open. And when you're sitting, that, you're not singing to your fullest there, or at least that's what they say.
I do agree with that. I had the same instruction in choir class. You're never supposed to like sit and sing, and I know they sometimes do that for plays and stuff. Like if it's a particularly emotional, like slow song, you can get away with it. But it's a general rule of thumb that if you're gonna do like actual full on singing, it's best to be standing, so that way you're not constricting yourself. Because I can imagine you'd get out of breath really quick having your knees up by where your lungs are.
Yeah, like, in something they talk about a little bit in the movie, but they don't expand upon it, where they say don't do it through your nose, do it through your breath, and they talk about that. But you see them sitting while singing, or mouthing, most of it throughout the film, and that is a point. It's like, yeah, I get it's a film. You can't do everything, but this is one of those things where it's just like, okay, you cut corners a little bit. It was clearly dubbed. That's a little bit of a problem. So I can kind of see that, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, I just, out of curiosity, I looked up Ticket Center to see if the Vienna Boys Choir was performing near us. They're actually performing at Red Bank in December.
Huh.
So
How much are tickets?
Let's see. From what I saw, they were starting around $60, which is actually pretty good considering.
Yeah, in this economy, that's actually not that bad compared to Broadway.
That's for certain. Yeah, that's where they gouge you.
All right, with that being said, let's talk about the characters a little bit and who plays them. We talked about most of them, but let's talk about the teacher, Max Heller, played by Peter Weck. I really like Max Heller. I know that there are problems with him not recognizing pushing these boys in a certain way isn't working the way he's intending it to, but I think I really enjoy him in this role as teacher because he clearly sees everything that's going on. He brings in Peter to teach and conduct Tony throughout the entire film. And I think he sees more of his conducting talent as the singing is starting to wane. And yes, the boy's not going to accept that his star power is going. He's going to be a problem, but he's probably trying to steer him in the way of like, look at all the other stuff you can do without outright saying it, because if you tell a boy that, like, oh, you can do this, he's going to say no. I think that's where they're going with the character. I like the character how he lets the boys be boys. He doesn't interrupt them or scold them for, like, playing and having fun, but he does try to steer them in better directions, like, don't go outside on a window, don't lock this person in a closet. He finds the heart of the situation. Could he be better? Yes, I do agree with Doug that, some parts of Max Heller's teaching isn't the best, but I think he is a good teacher. Kat, would you weigh in on this?
Yeah, as I said before, I do agree he's a good teacher and does have a few flaws worth acknowledging, because we see him throughout the film, and while it's clear that, he is showing a bit of favoritism where Peter and Tony are concerned, it's for obvious reason, because they're both obscenely talented and he wants to nurture that talent. And yes, he kind of goes about it slightly the wrong way by, just assuming Peter would be cool with mentoring Tony without taking into Peter's feelings and consideration that, he's essentially training his replacement. But for the most part, the guy's pretty cool. Like, he assures Tony that it doesn't matter that he's not great at math, that he can still do great things, just like Schubert did. He also doesn't break up the pillow fight that the boys are having, wanting to let them have a little bit of fun before he broke things up. And he's, for the most part, encouraging throughout the whole thing. And he even acknowledges his mistakes later on when he chastises Peter for not telling him about the voice change, when it turns out Peter actually did try to tell him, but Heller was too busy. So, yeah, he's honestly the most well-rounded character in this film. Again, he's a great teacher, has some notable flaws, but he does his best. He's always encouraging toward his students, and they all come out much better because they've learned from him. So, yeah, he's definitely, the MVP of this film.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Doug, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I said, my piece earlier on him kind of showing a bit of favoritism and thereby, kind of aggravating the situation between Tony and Peter. But yes, he is a good teacher. He is an overall good guy. What was it that what's her name in the blog said? Like, she kept harping on how nice he was. Because he's so nice. He doesn't break up the... He waits to go in the room when he hears all the commotion going on with the pillow fight. And he doesn't, scold anybody or anything like that. And despite the fact that Tony's brought the radio, which isn't supposed to be allowed, it's like he doesn't, say anything about it, although they make you think that he will. Again, He's nice, but I think it is to his detriment too, because as we mentioned, he also kind of ignores Peter's plea while he's a little too busy, and then rather than trying to go back to it, we just kind of keep moving. I think probably if they had had that conversation earlier, it might have helped us with the pacing issue. I know they really wanted to show that play, but I think it probably would have helped us iron out the issue with that going on a little too long, and then maybe we could have focused a little more on Peter. But I'm maybe getting off topic there. But yes, Heller is a good guy ultimately. Good teacher. What more do you need to say?
I think what really gets me about him, and I think what I really like, is that he clearly wants everyone in the film to succeed. He wants the boys to do their best, and he pushes them in directions without really outright stating it. Does he have problems with certain things? Yes, but I've worked on stage production. You get pretty busy and you start to forget things, and I do understand that.
I did want to bring one thing up because I mentioned it in the last one, and it's always on my mind when we were watching it. But the actor Peter Weck, he just has this sort of Desi Arnaz, Ricky Ricardo vibe about him.
Yeah,
that I couldn't help but be distracted by.
Donnie, I'm home.
Speaking on that note, Peter Weck, born in 1930, is an Austrian film director and actor. He has worked on actor, more than 50 productions between 1969 and 2007. He is still presently active, but his career has not as lucrative as it used to be. According to this image in 2013, he was 95. So unless this wasn't updated, he's probably in retirement right now. Still, he studied acting at the University of Music and Performing Arts in Vienna and the Max Reinhardt Seminar. He made his film debut in 1954 as Karl Ludwig of Austria in Sissy, which is one of the musicals that came before this and kind of inspired this in a little bit. But he's been in Almost Angels, The Cardinal, The Phantom of the Opera. He managed theater. He was responsible for different premieres. He's done so much. And if you looked at his filmography, it just goes on and on. Directing, theater, directing. This guy's done a lot. So part of the believability goes in this guy has done so much. Kat, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm looking at his biography and filmography. It's like this guy's basically been doing like movies and shows and stuff forever, and like he's still alive too. Like God bless him, man. And he's I assume he's still at it. I mean, why not? I mean, Betty White was acting up until she passed away, so would make sense he would continue to do so as well. But yeah, like all these titles and stuff, I can't help but laugh at this one title, Grandma Rules. Sorry. Sorry, that just caught my eye for some reason. But yeah, it's a shame
there's
that...
some really crazy credits on some of these.
For certain. Yeah, the other one, Help, I Love Twins. I can only imagine what that's about. But yeah, the only thing that's a shame is that he didn't do more stuff in America, because I think he could have had a really great career, doing American films and stuff. It's surprising that, Disney didn't pick him up to do more stuff, but I guess he just wanted to stay in Austria and, just work with the entertainment industry there. I mean, who wants to travel cross country all the time to do movies? But yeah, he was amazing in this, and it's a shame this is the only Disney film he's ever done. But yeah, I mean, shout out to this guy. I mean, I hope wherever he is, he's doing well and he's still keeping at it, because he's a genuine talent, that's for certain.
Yeah, genuine talent. Much love for this guy. He in theater, music, everything. Doug, anything else to say before I move on to the other actor who has a lot of credits here?
I got nothing.
I do want to give one shout out. Again, this is just by virtue of us researching. We wanted to give a shout out to the Great Disney Movie Ride. It's a blog which, like Jess's channel, covers every Disney movie ever, except it's a written review. And this honestly helped us a lot because, as we knew we had to re-record this again, I felt that I needed like a sort of written a sort of written retrospective of what happened in the movie. Like, I know we were going to watch it anyway again, but it felt like, I needed some of those talking points, and this one really helped. It's actually helped for, like, the last couple of reviews to condense a few things we forgot about. So, yeah, shout out to this blog. Definitely give it a look for sure.
Yeah, I try to do as much research as I can behind the scenes, but some stuff, like we're about to talk about. So, Peter, we're not going to talk about that much because, played by Sean Scully, Australian actor and singer, active in film and television and theater, but we don't really see a lot of credits here. Like, he has recurring roles in, like, Matlock and a few other things. Sunday Too Far Away, Australian New Wave, A City's Child, Heaven Tonight, but, like, there isn't a lot that I know of personally, and that's a shame because, like, it seems like he was mostly Australian-based, not Australian, Austrian-based, sorry. I got tripped up because one of his film credits is Australian New Wave. But
he was born in Australia, so he is Australian. He might have just moved to Austria. You know how easy it is to get those two confused.
Yeah. So he began his acting career in Cinerama South Seas Adventure, after which he relocated from Australia to London in 1959. So I guess he just got this role and, that was part of it. But it's interesting. But I think Peter does a good job. Unfortunately, I can't find too much more about Sean Scully. I think he was a talent just in another country. I do want to give much love to his acting. But I won't be talking as much about him since I can't find as much about him as the next person that we're going to be talking about. But Kat, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, again, I have the same sentiments as I did about Peter Weck, in that I felt like this was another actor that I thought did a much better job than you expect, that surprisingly wasn't picked up by Disney. But then again, he probably was at that age where he was like aging out of the cute demographics. They probably wouldn't have been able to use him for too long. But yeah, I thought he did a great job acting wise in this, because he gets the most like acting range in that he goes through an arc where he starts off as like sort of a pompous douche, and he's a jealous prick who's trying to screw over Tony. But then as time goes on, he sees the good that Tony does, and he comes around and becomes a lot more likable to the point. And so by the time his voice cracks and you see the devastation on his face, realizing that his career as a choir boy is over, you feel that. You really feel like his pain, his horror, his disappointment and anger and sadness over, having lost the thing he's been doing for like presumably the last 4 years of his life. So yeah, thought he was really good. And again, it's surprising he's not in more stuff, even if it's mostly Disney related. So yeah, I see that he still had like an illustrious career, even if it was probably mostly behind the scenes. But yeah, for certain, I think he was a good guy that deserves acknowledgement.
Doug, anything to add before I talk about the most interesting member of our cast here?
No, I don't know what else I can add, so I'll pass.
All right. So let's talk about Vincent Winter. Now, this is the one that surprised me the most. Vincent Winter, who played Tony, was a Scottish child film actor who has done so much. So he was born in Aberdeen, Scotland, and made his first film appearance at the age of 6 in The Kidnappers. Now, because of that award, he appeared in several films, including Beyond This Place, the Walt Disney Greyfriars Bobby, I think it's one of the orphans, Gorgo, Almost Angels, The Horse Without a Head, and The 3 Lives of Thomasina, which we're going to be talking about soon. So he was kind of a Disney child actor, even though he was Scottish. However, he went from that to later becoming an adult production manager on some of the most crazy things ever. For Your Eyes Only, Superman 3, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and the 1985 The Color Purple, in addition to a whole bunch more. So he was a child actor that grew up, said, all right, I'm going to be a production manager on Superman 2, Superman 3, Indiana Jones, Henry VIII, Henry V, The Wind in the Willows, so much stuff, Magnum PI, like he's done a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, he died in Chertsey, Surrey as a result of a heart attack at age 50.
Too young, man. Too young.
And that's, like, this guy has brought us some major stuff as a child, major stuff as an adult, and died way too young. This is a talent. Doug?
Yeah, I mean, how often do you hear, like, stories of, the child actors that basically, they kept at it and it ruined their lives, or, they got thrown away. You have, so many, the bad endings where, it's nice to see stuff like this where they decided to, quit the acting, but stay within the confines and, grow themselves out, do other work. So, that is nice. It is a shame that he, only made it to 50. But, hey, look, the line of work that he's, been involved with, that's a lot to say.
So yeah, like, this has a strange cast for me because half of it is really well-known people, but in other countries. Half of it is the Austrian Boys Choir, and then there's also this guy who did, like, Superman 3 and all this stuff, and it's like, it's so weird how these things kind of worked out. There's obviously some Disney standouts like Hans Holt as Director Eisinger, who you may know as appearing in so many films. He's done a lot. There's a lot of well-known people in these films, and yet this is a not well-known film. I think I made my case earlier about why this is a forgotten film. It was dicked around by marketing. It was dicked around by, Sound of Music coming out so close. They didn't bank on it, so people went to see Lady and the Tramp and not this in the double feature, and it just, like, they did not have faith in this film. The quality was on beta. There's a lot of things going against it, but overall, I think this has a lot of love and a lot of talent. And I think this is a film worthy of your time. This is free on Disney Plus, but I would recommend checking out the DVD. I think this is a hidden gem. Kat?
Yeah, for certain, because this doesn't follow the typical formula we've been subjected to for, like, the last dozen or so films, because I'm so used to seeing, like, the same people, Tommy Kirk, Fred McMurray, a character that has a dog, like, all these stuff of, like, tropes we've been seeing multiple times for the last several films. Like, this kind of deviates from all of it, and it tells a story from, the other side of the pond, and it involves a group that actually is real, and showcases those real people singing. Like, it's a good promotion for said group, because, it's music, and the world needs music. I actually think Disney himself, like, did love this project. In fact, when he was going over their costumes, he actually requested that they have the Republic of Austria's crest on it, which is an eagle crest, just because he thought it would look better with their outfits on on screen. And apparently the choir themselves love the change so much, they still wear it to this day. So, obviously they have an affinity for Disney for influencing in that way. And Disney himself, loved it enough to ask for those changes. So, and again, they had, like, despite the quality, like, the cinematography is amazing, and just how much it shows of the countryside. Like, again, if this was shot today, those scenes would be beautiful. They would be stand out. You would get the, you would honestly like revel in the magnificence of like the church that they sing in, of the countryside that they travel on. It could have been like amazing, but again, the problem is because by this point Walt was kind of stretching himself thin between, you know, the other bigger film projects he was on, between his parks and his deteriorating health, and then, you know, he had other people behind the scenes that probably assumed this wouldn't do well, and so they kind of tried to just hide it, probably without his full knowledge. So yeah, it's really a shame this didn't get the highlight that it did. I mean, at the very least, it was acknowledged enough where it was worth getting a DVD adaptation later on. But still, I feel like more people should know about this. And yeah, it's not the most groundbreaking story. It's not, you know, doesn't do anything too spectacular, but it's still worth a watch for certain.
Yeah. And speaking on the cinematography, there is one shot that is really, really good. I think they had like a dolly or a tracking shot. It's when his father sees his bad grades and he walks over and the camera follows him and backs up, and it's a really great shot, and you think he's going to be angry, and he's like, it's not good, but I want you to sing. And it's like, it's a really great shot for the time period. I think that was fantastic. Doug, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. Definitely, this movie didn't get the attention it deserves. It's not the greatest, but it's very telling when, you know, most of the movies that we've had to, you know, watch for the debate, we've had to, you know, scramble to Amazon or Fandango or Vudu, whatever, whereas this one was actually available on Disney Plus, so that's very telling. It does stink that, you know, it got dicked around by marketing and they didn't have enough faith in it to, you know, let it be on its own. Obviously, there's some issues with it for certain, but on the whole, I did not hate it at all. I did enjoy it. I have gripes, but, you know, that it did not take away from my enjoyment. Definitely, like we said, if you're able to track it down on DVD, I would definitely make that purchase.
Yeah. Overall, this was a surprise. This was a pleasant surprise. And even though we had to watch this twice, unlike, say, The Legend of Lobo, which I'm dreading, this one was great for a second watch. It actually made me appreciate it more, and I think that this film should be in your collection. If not, just check it out on Disney Plus. Watch it, because there are some really good parts to it, and it's not a bad film. It's a hidden gem for sure, and it doesn't deserve the rap that it got from history and the way Disney kind of dicked it around. With that being said, I am Zenith, Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns.
I'm Kat Macberrie.
I'm Doug Macberrie.
And we will see you next time, not for The Legend of Lobo, because we still have to re-record that, but next time we're going to have our Halloween special, and after much discussion over the years, we have finally decided about this year's Halloween special. It is time for us to talk about a film I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and I've been suggesting it every single Halloween, but something else goes out. But we finally are going to sit down and discuss The Tower of Terror. I know it's probably going to be cheesy. I loved it as a kid, but I'm looking forward to it. And then we'll go back into The Legend of Lobo. But it's time for The Tower of Terror, the TV movie that I remember liking as a kid, but it might not have aged well. We'll see how it goes. With that being said, have a good one, everybody. Bye!